Strategies for effective time management. Introduction. The unseen currency. Time is the currency no one sees, yet everyone spends. We live under the illusion that time is something external, an invisible river flowing around us. But time is internal. It is perception, it is decision, it is mastery, or it is slavery. Every morning, you are given 24 blank checks. With them, you invest in distraction or in discipline. You waste them on whims, or you wield them with wisdom. And while money lost can be regained, time once gone is never recaptured. In the chaos of modern life, most people surrender their hours to the demands of others. Emails, alerts, meaningless meetings, unending noise. And in doing so, they give away their power. They feel the stress, the exhaustion, the quiet panic of a day slipping by without purpose. Not because they lack intelligence or ambition, but because they've never learned the true strategies for managing time. This book is not about lists or calendars. It is not about waking up at 5 a.m. or hacking your schedule until it breaks. This book is about control. It is about understanding the silent laws of productivity, the patterns, the psychology, the choices that separate the overwhelmed from the unstoppable. It is about strategy, not routine, depth, not speed, precision, not pressure, because time, properly mastered, is a weapon, and those who wield it with clarity and intention create lives of meaning, momentum, and quiet dominance. As we move forward, each chapter will serve as a tactical guide, a lens to reframe how you approach time. You will learn to remove the unnecessary, to structure your energy, to recognize the false urgency that keeps you enslaved. You will walk away not just informed, but transformed. This is your initiation. If you seek to gain more from your days than what the world permits, if you want to reclaim your time from the grasp of distraction, indecision, and regret, then prepare. You are not here to pass time. You are here to master it. Chapter 1. The first discipline, awareness. Before you can master your time, you must first master your attention. And to do that, you must become aware not just of what you do, but why you do it. Most people do not manage time. They react to it. They respond to alarms, deadlines, and obligations like marionettes on strings, pulled by invisible forces. They check their phones without thought. They say yes without pause. They drift into routines that feel like decisions, but are in truth habits, and habits without awareness are chains. The first and greatest discipline is awareness, not the passive awareness of knowing what time it is, but the active, focused observation of how you are spending it. Every moment you are awake, your attention is being hunted. Corporations spend billions designing ways to capture it. Your devices are engineered to steal it. The world is loud, seductive, and relentless. Without awareness, you are not choosing how to live. You are being chosen. So stop. Step back. Begin to notice the architecture of your day. Where do your eyes go first thing in the morning? What patterns do your fingers follow when you're anxious? Who owns the first hour of your day? You or someone else? This chapter is not about fixing your time yet. It is about seeing it clearly. Imagine yourself as a strategist studying a battlefield. You don't charge forward blindly. You watch. You learn the terrain. You understand where your time is leaking before you attempt to seal the wounds. Here is your first exercise. For the next 3 days, carry a small notebook or open a document on your phone. Track your time. Every 15 minutes, write down what you're doing. Not just working or resting, but the truth. Scrolling Instagram, replying to trivial messages, refreshing your inbox, pacing, thinking about thinking. At first it will feel tedious, but soon it becomes revealing. You will notice that many of your choices are not choices. They are reactions. You will see that the day is not stolen in great, obvious chunks, but eroded in whispers, a minute here, a glance there, a diversion unnoticed. And in that noticing, you will gain power, because once you see clearly, you can choose deliberately. This is how masters of time begin, not with control but with clarity. They do not guess how they spend their days. They know. They examine their impulses, dissect their distractions, and illuminate their blind spots. Awareness becomes their armor. The goal is not to shame yourself. The goal is to collect data, to become a scientist of your own life, to look at your time without judgment, but with curiosity. Because the moment you observe it, you begin to reclaim it. You will find patterns. You will uncover triggers. You will see how often you trade depth for dopamine. And in that revelation, change becomes inevitable. The person who sees clearly, acts wisely. Before structure, before goals, before optimization, there must be vision, inner vision, the kind that slices through excuses and exposes reality. Your time is your story. If you do not write it, someone else will. Awareness is not a moment. It is a practice, a muscle that must be exercised, stretched, and torn before it grows. Once you start observing your time with precision, a new layer of reality reveals itself, quietly, uncomfortably. You begin to recognize the subtle contracts you've made with distraction. You see how often you escape into tasks that feel productive but accomplish nothing. The inbox check, disguised as urgency. The podcast that masks procrastination. The color-coded to-do list that replaces real movement with aesthetic illusion. But now, you're awake, and that changes everything. There is a phrase from military strategy: to know the enemy is to know victory. The enemy in this context is not your calendar, it is your autopilot. That unconscious drift into repetition, obligation, and noise. And awareness is your reconnaissance mission. You are mapping the terrain of your time, its weaknesses, its friction points, its false exits. With that map, decisions become easier. You will start to notice certain conversations leave you drained. Certain apps act like black holes. Certain times of day your focus vanishes. These are not mysteries. They are signals. Let's take this further. Once you identify where your time goes, begin asking the harder question: why? Why do you reach for your phone when the room falls quiet? Why do you say yes to tasks that dilute your day? Why do you delay the important in favor of the immediate? Behind every distraction is an emotion you're avoiding: fear, boredom, insecurity, restlessness. Awareness pulls that emotion to the surface, not to shame you but to study it. Because you cannot manage time until you manage yourself. Here lies the uncomfortable truth. Time management is not about time, it is about self-mastery. And the path to self-mastery begins in the shadows, where your reflexes live, where your habits breathe, where your unconscious choices operate undisturbed. You are now disturbing them. You are watching your day with surgical focus. You are making the invisible visible. From here you start creating space. Not space on your calendar, but mental space, distance between impulse and action. You feel the urge to check your phone and pause. You notice the pull of another shallow task and choose depth instead. This is how control begins, not with a new tool but a new tension. A tension between who you've been and who you are becoming. That space is sacred. Guard it. As you build this awareness, another shift begins. Your values start surfacing. You notice what matters, you notice what doesn't. You begin making micro decisions that reflect a macro purpose. And that is the first true victory. Because time, when observed with honesty, becomes direction. You're not just spending it, you're investing it. Every minute now becomes an asset, a building block of your future, rather than a casualty of your past habits. Awareness opens the door. What comes next is movement. But before we move, take one more day. Watch, track, reflect. Look at your time like a strategist preparing for a campaign, not with emotion, but with focus. Because once you master awareness, everything else sharpens. Time begins to bend to the will of the conscious. Awareness, once awakened, is relentless. It doesn't retreat. It sharpens. It shows you not just how you live, but how you've tolerated living. You start to see how time has been slowly stolen, not by grand theft, but by quiet consent. You remember days lost to overcommitment, hours surrendered to meaningless scrolling, entire mornings drained by someone else's agenda. And for the first time, you don't just feel regret, you feel resolve. This is not guilt. Guilt is passive. This is recognition. And recognition is power. You begin to see how much of your time was never yours to begin with. It belonged to expectations, to other people's fires, to the endless pressure of performing, pleasing, pretending. But now, as awareness grows, a rebellion begins. You start to say no, not out of resistance, but out of alignment. You cancel the unnecessary. You delay the unimportant. You stop justifying your availability, because the person who is always available is never truly present. And presence is the foundation of mastery. Here's a deeper truth. Every decision about time is a declaration of identity. When you say, "I don't have time," what you're really saying is, it's not a priority. That's not just scheduling, that's self-definition. Awareness forces you to confront that definition. Who are you prioritizing? What do you protect? What do you allow to die in the name of busyness? Most people guard their money more fiercely than their minutes. But wealth, real wealth, is found in time well used, not things well owned. The illusion of productivity is one of the most dangerous traps. Just because you're in motion doesn't mean you're progressing. Just because you're doing something doesn't mean you're doing something that matters. The master of time understands this. They distinguish between urgency and importance. They see how the world constantly demands response, and they learn the art of restraint. Awareness gives you this lens. It teaches you to pause before responding, to examine before engaging, to ask not what can I do right now, but what should I protect right now. With each layer of awareness, you reclaim another fragment of your life. You begin to notice that time is not lost in one big collapse. It is lost in the 1,000 unnoticed concessions we make each day. And yet, this realization is not a burden, it's liberation. Because if time can be lost by unconscious choice, it can be recovered by conscious command. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply untrained. But now the training has begun. You are studying your life. You are evaluating your energy. You are peeling back the distractions and listening, really listening to what your attention is telling you. Because attention is a mirror. It reflects what you value, even when you say otherwise. So keep watching, keep tracking, keep questioning. This first discipline, awareness, is not something you graduate from. It is the foundation you will return to, again and again, refining it, sharpening it, strengthening your perception like a sword. The path of mastery begins with seeing things as they are. not as you wish they were, not as they were yesterday, but as they are now. And now you see clearly. What you do next will define everything. Chapter 2. The Myth of Busy. Busy is the badge of the disoriented. It is worn loudly, repeated often, and believed deeply. But beneath it lies a dangerous illusion, one that fools the mind, traps the body, and wastes the soul. To be busy is not to be productive. To be busy is not to be important. To be busy, more often than not, is to be unclear. Clarity and busyness rarely coexist. When you know what matters, you move with precision. You act, not react. You cut away the unnecessary with discipline and intention. But when clarity is absent, chaos rushes in to fill the void, and chaos is always busy. Look around. You'll see it in the meetings that lead nowhere, the endless loops of messages that solve nothing, the people rushing to arrive only to forget why they came, the endless ticking of the clock while nothing meaningful is built. This is not work. It's movement without direction. It's motion without momentum. And here is the truth that most won't admit. Busyness is often a defense mechanism. It shields us from the discomfort of stillness. It allows us to avoid the terrifying question, what do I actually want to accomplish? Because answering that question forces commitment. It forces elimination. It demands saying no, not just to others, but to versions of yourself that are comfortable staying lost in the noise. The myth of busy seduces you with the feeling of progress, without the burden of purpose. But the master of time is never seduced. They recognize that the busiest person in the room is often the most unaligned. They seek not to fill time, but to refine it. They measure their effectiveness, not in hours worked, but in clarity achieved. They ask sharper questions. Is this the highest use of my time? Am I moving closer to what matters, or just staying in motion? What am I avoiding by staying busy? Because staying busy is easy. It creates the illusion that you're valuable, engaged, indispensable. But mastery isn't found in motion. It's found in intention. True power lies in choosing what not to do, in walking away from tasks that scream for your attention, but starve your purpose, in realizing that every yes to distraction is a no to mastery. This is the war you are now in, the war between clarity and chaos. Every time you say, I'm busy, pause. Ask yourself, busy with what? Busy for whom? Busy to what end? If the answer doesn't light your mind on fire, something is wrong. And if you keep moving without questioning, you'll wake up one day and realize you were never really too busy. You were just too afraid to slow down and take control. Busyness is not a status. It is not a virtue. It is a fog. And it is your job now to clear it. Busyness thrives on ambiguity. The less you define your priorities, the more tasks rush in to claim them. This is why so many people drown in to-do lists that stretch endlessly, yet leave them hollow and unfulfilled. When everything matters, nothing does. You must begin to separate signal from noise. The majority of what demands your attention is designed to feel urgent, not to be important. Your inbox, your notifications, the sudden drop-ins and surprise requests, none of these are sacred. They are loud, not vital. And in the absence of clear standards, you will default to responding to whatever yells the loudest. But there is a different way, one that few choose, because it requires courage. The courage to be unavailable. The courage to be misunderstood. The courage to step off the hamster wheel and say, I do not equate being overwhelmed with being effective. You will be tempted often to fill the gaps in your day with something, anything, to avoid the discomfort of having space. But space is not the enemy. Space is where strategy breathes, where thought sharpens, where your future is sketched out in real, intentional strokes. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you felt genuinely satisfied by your busyness? Not exhausted, not proud of your endurance, but truly fulfilled. Most people never ask this question. They're too consumed by the next obligation, the next appearance, the next performance. They confuse stress with significance, and in doing so, they hand over their autonomy to a culture that feeds on compliance and speed. But you are not here to comply. You are here to take command. To do that, you must learn to let go of the identity you've built around being busy. It feels noble because we've been taught that sacrifice equals virtue. But if what you're sacrificing is focus, clarity, and joy, then the trade is poison dressed in gold. Stop glorifying exhaustion. Stop measuring your value by how much you can juggle at once. Stop confusing quantity of output with quality of life. Instead, start identifying the essential few, the actions, relationships, and decisions that truly move the needle. Then build walls around them. Fierce, intentional walls. Guard those hours like your life depends on it, because it does. The world will push against those walls. It will call you selfish, aloof, obsessive. Let it. Every visionary has been called those things before the results silence the noise. And remember, the people who demand the most of your time are often the ones who value it the least. So, edit your commitments. Audit your calendar. Strip your days down to the bare essentials, then rebuild only what deserves to return. Busyness is not the sign of someone in demand. Busyness is the symptom of someone afraid to decide. And the moment you decide to focus, to cut, to simplify, you reclaim what busyness has stolen: your presence, your power, your path. There is a seduction in being constantly needed, a false prestige in being the one who is always on, always responding, always doing. It feels like importance, but more often than not, it is entrapment. Being indispensable in chaos is not the same as being impactful in clarity. If you're the person others always rely on to clean up the mess, to answer the midnight call, to patch every broken system, ask yourself why. Is it because you are the most capable, or because you've never built the boundaries to say no? Busyness can become an addiction, not to productivity, but to avoidance. It becomes a cloak that hides the truth, that stillness is uncomfortable, that reflection is confronting, that meaningful progress requires stepping away from the noise. So you must retrain your reflexes. You must teach yourself that saying no is not rejection, it's refinement. That rest is not laziness, it's leverage. That clarity is not a luxury, it's your lifeline. Every time you remove something unnecessary, you make space for something powerful. But be warned, once you step off the busy treadmill, the silence will test you. You'll feel the urge to fill it again, with distractions, with small tasks, with the comfort of constant movement. Resist. Let the silence stretch. Let the discomfort surface, because underneath that silence is focus. And underneath that focus is the life you were meant to build, not the one filled by default, but the one crafted by design. The people who master time are not those who do the most. They are the ones who remove the most. They curate their lives like an artist, carve stone, removing piece by piece, until only the essential remains. They aren't afraid to walk away from meetings, obligations, even opportunities that don't align with their deepest values. They don't check their calendars to see what they're allowed to do. They decide what matters and build a calendar to protect it. This is the transformation you are stepping into. From busy to clear, from frantic to focused, from default to deliberate, and it will change more than your schedule. It will change your presence, your energy, your confidence, because when you are no longer at the mercy of busyness, you become dangerous in the best way. Unshaken, unhurried, unmistakably aligned. The myth of busy dies here, replaced not by more activity, but by intelligent action, not by filling time, but by owning it. From this point forward, let busy be a red flag, a warning sign that you've drifted from what matters. Use it as a signal to stop, to reassess, to return to intention. You are not too busy. You are just one decision away from becoming clear, Chapter 3. The Power of Elimination. Productivity is not about addition, it is about subtraction. We've been conditioned to think that managing time means cramming more into it, more goals, more tools, more techniques. But the truth is simple and severe. The most powerful use of your time begins with removal. Not everything deserves a place in your day. Not every task needs completion. Not every invitation requires acceptance. The master of time is not someone who gets everything done. The master of time is the one who discards the unimportant with ruthless clarity and without apology. This is the principle of elimination. What you remove defines your results. It begins with a question too few ask. What must I stop doing? This is not about laziness. It's about leverage. You cannot climb if you are carrying everything. You cannot focus if you are surrounded by noise. You cannot create if you are constantly reacting. Elimination is a filter. It separates what serves you from what enslaves you. Look around at your commitments. How many were accepted by default, out of politeness, fear, or inertia? How many of your obligations are relics from a former version of yourself, tasks you no longer believe in, roles you no longer want, expectations you never agreed to? The most dangerous clutter is not on your desk, it's in your schedule. And behind that clutter is a story that saying no is selfish, that quitting is weakness, that fewer responsibilities mean you're not doing enough. But here is the truth, the high performers understand. Focus is built on refusal. They say no more than they say yes. They quit often and strategically. They eliminate anything that does not contribute to their core mission. They are not afraid to disappoint others because they refuse to disappoint themselves. Elimination creates clarity, and clarity sharpens energy. Every task you remove returns a piece of your focus. Every commitment you drop returns a portion of your power. But elimination is not random. It's guided by a brutal, honest audit of your values. You must confront each task with the seriousness it demands. Ask, does this align with where I am going? Would I say yes to this again if offered today? Is this creating real momentum or just movement? If the answer is no, the action is obvious. Cut. Most people avoid this process because it requires confrontation with others and with themselves. They fear letting people down. They fear appearing unreliable. But in trying to be everything to everyone, they become nothing to themselves. This is not a practice in cruelty. It is a practice in clarity. You cannot do it all. You were never meant to. The illusion of being a superhero. Saying yes to every opportunity, responding to every request, holding every thread will only stretch you until you break. So make space. Protect space. Elimination is not the enemy of ambition. It is its foundation. Elimination is more than a tactic. It's a mindset. A philosophy of ownership over everything that enters your mental, emotional, and physical space. It's the discipline of conscious design, and it demands one critical belief. Not all inputs deserve your attention. In the absence of that belief, your life becomes a landfill of other people's priorities. Every notification is granted access. Every opinion becomes influence. Every demand feels like duty. But when you truly understand elimination, you no longer ask, "Can I fit this in?" You ask, "Why would I?" This shift is not subtle. It's radical. It redefines your calendar. It reshapes your relationships. It rewires your value system. It changes what you chase. The productivity myth says you should always be doing, always adding, always maximizing. But the truth is, you only gain control when you stop trying to control everything. Consider this: the greatest artists, strategists, and leaders don't achieve excellence through volume. They achieve it through subtraction. They are not known for what they did. They are revered for what they refused to do. They understood that every yes is a no to something else, and they chose wisely. You must develop this same surgical mindset. Become ruthless with your inputs. Examine your environment. What are you consuming daily? Visually, mentally, emotionally? Who are you allowing into your headspace? What stories are you accepting as truth? Each one is a seed. It will grow into either clarity or confusion. Elimination is your scalpel. Use it to cut away the unnecessary beliefs, tasks, and assumptions you've inherited. Many of them were never yours to begin with. They came from parents, teachers, employers, culture. They sound like, "You must always be available. If you don't do it, no one will." Hard work is always noble, but noble doesn't mean necessary, and effort without direction is wasted devotion. So replace these inherited obligations with intentional choices. Let your actions become extensions of your purpose, not echoes of your programming. Practice saying no without justification, without guilt, without delay. Every no is a vote for your highest priorities. Every no clears the space for a more meaningful yes. The power of elimination compounds over time. At first it feels like you're doing less, but in truth you're doing more of what matters. You're preserving your mental energy. You're focusing your momentum. You're building a foundation of strategic quiet around your most essential goals. You begin to feel lighter, sharper, more dangerous to anything that seeks to dilute you, because you are no longer bloated with unnecessary obligations. You are no longer carrying other people's expectations like a weight on your back. You are no longer proving your worth by how much you can hold. Now you are proving it by how clearly you can cut. This is how mastery is built, not just by what you choose, but by what you eliminate. To master time, you must first master subtraction, and to master subtraction, you must let go of the emotional baggage that keeps you entangled with the unnecessary, because elimination is not just practical, it's emotional. Letting go means confronting the fear of being forgotten, the anxiety of being less productive, the discomfort of saying no to something that once defined you. That fear is real, but it is not truth. Truth is found in stillness, the kind of stillness that follows the courageous act of cutting a project that no longer serves you, cutting a commitment made under pressure, not purpose, cutting a version of yourself that felt necessary to survive but is no longer needed to grow. And with every cut, space returns. Mental space, emotional space, creative space, the kind of space that allows deep work, meaningful thought, and strategic movement to re-enter your life. But here's the challenge: the world will not celebrate your elimination. It won't throw you a parade for saying no. It won't reward you for simplifying. In fact, it might criticize you, call you selfish, aloof, detached. Let it, because their chaos is not your responsibility. You are not here to please everyone. You are here to protect the integrity of your time. Consider the words of the Stoics. If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, when you begin to eliminate, people will misunderstand. And that's okay. Your clarity is not their business. Elimination is not subtraction for the sake of emptiness. It is subtraction for the sake of precision. You are not making space to do nothing. You are making space to do only what matters. And when your energy is no longer divided, your execution becomes unstoppable. This is the paradox. Elimination feels like loss, but becomes the gateway to expansion. The fewer decisions you have to make, the more powerful each one becomes. The fewer people you aim to please, the more honest you become. The fewer distractions you allow, the more focus you possess. So develop the courage to say, "This isn't aligned with my priorities. I no longer have the bandwidth for this. Thank you, but no." Say it with grace. Say it with finality. Each time you do, you reclaim a part of yourself lost to the noise. Over time, elimination will not just shape your schedule, it will sculpt your identity. You'll no longer see yourself as someone who manages time. You'll see yourself as someone who commands it, who shapes it, who defends it with precision and pride. That's the real gift of elimination. It doesn't just give you more time, it gives you yourself back. And when you finally possess yourself fully, you become untouchable. Chapter 4. Energy over hours. The obsession with hours is a distraction. People wear long hours like medals, as if endurance alone proves worth. They track time spent instead of results earned. They confuse activity with achievement, motion with momentum. But mastery doesn't belong to the one who works the longest. It belongs to the one who brings the most energy to the work. Energy, not hours, is the true currency of productivity. You've seen it. Someone can spend 8 hours on a task that another finishes in 2. The difference isn't intelligence. It isn't even skill. It's energy, focused, deliberate, undiluted energy. Time is a container. Energy is the fire inside it. So the question is not how much time do I have. The question is what kind of energy can I bring to this moment. Energy management begins with awareness of your rhythms, your environment, your inputs. Every person has peak hours, those windows when their mind is sharpest, their intuition strongest. Protect those hours like treasure. Design your schedule around them. Do your most meaningful work there, and guard it with your life. Because the world will try to steal those hours. Emails will knock. People will ask for just 5 minutes. Distractions will whisper, tempt, and beg. But a master of time is also a master of thresholds. They know what they're protecting. They know why it matters. And they do not apologize for building a fortress around their focus. Just as important is recognizing what drains you. There are tasks that leave you depleted, conversations that fracture your attention, habits that slowly poison your momentum. These must be reduced, delegated, or eliminated altogether. To perform at your highest level, you must learn to treat your energy like a precious resource, because it is. Think like an athlete. Rest is not a break from performance. It's part of performance. The best do not work longer. They recover better. They understand that exhaustion is not a badge. It's a liability. When your energy is low, your decisions weaken. Your creativity dulls. Your resilience fades. That's not weakness. It's biology. And ignoring biology in favor of bravado is a losing game. Instead, build rituals that renew you. Get strategic about food, sleep, movement, and solitude. These are not soft ideas. They are hard necessities. They are the foundations that allow you to perform on command. And don't just renew, anticipate. Structure your day with intention. Place your highest leverage activities when your energy is highest. Group similar tasks together to avoid context switching. Design transitions that reignite focus before diving into deep work. You are not a machine. You are a system. And a well-managed system runs on alignment, not abuse. We've built a culture that worships burnout. A world where being tired is a status symbol and exhaustion is confused with effort. But the truth is plain. When you are chronically tired, you are not operating at your best, you are simply surviving. And survival is not mastery. High performers don't just protect their energy, they invest in it. They understand that energy compounds, that 1 hour of deep focused work at peak energy yields more than 3 hours spent dragging your feet through distraction. They prioritize quality of presence over quantity of time. And this starts with a radical shift in perspective. Stop managing your minutes. Start managing your state. Your mental and emotional state is the lens through which every task, every interaction, every challenge is filtered. A foggy mind turns opportunity into obligation. A depleted body turns creativity into a chore. You've felt it before, those rare moments when everything aligns. You're alert, clear, fully engaged. Time seems to slow. Work becomes effortless. That's not an accident. That's the result of being in the right state. So reverse engineer those moments. What preceded them? What environment were you in? What had you consumed mentally, physically, emotionally? Build your day to trigger those states more often. Craft the conditions that make flow the default, not the exception. This is the essence of energy mastery. You don't wait for inspiration, you create it. You become the architect of your vitality. You don't just show up, you arrive with force, with clarity, with intent. This requires discipline. Not the grind until you collapse kind, but the kind rooted in self-respect. Discipline that says, I don't check messages first thing in the morning, because my mind deserves clarity before chaos. Discipline that says, I take breaks, not because I'm weak, but because I'm building strength. And here's something critical. Protect your energy from people as much as from tasks. Some conversations drain more than entire projects. Some interactions derail your state for hours. You don't owe constant access to anyone. You owe clarity to yourself. Create boundaries that allow you to thrive, not merely function. Say no to meetings that have no agenda. Decline calls that serve no purpose. Postpone conversations that disrupt your momentum. Energy is not an infinite resource. It must be earned, preserved, and spent with precision. Every day, you make trades. You trade energy for outcomes, focus for impact, attention for progress. Make those trades count. Refuse to scatter your fire across 1,000 distractions. Instead, direct it. Contain it. Intensify it. Because when your energy is aligned, even a short block of time can produce extraordinary results. And when your energy is fractured, even a full day disappears into nothing. Time may be finite, but energy, the right energy, makes time bend in your favor. Energy is not just about what you do. It's about what you allow, what thoughts you allow to loop in your mind, what conversations you permit to linger too long, what environments you remain in, long after they've stopped feeding you. Mastering energy means mastering boundaries, not just with others, but with yourself. Because the biggest drain on your energy is rarely external. It's the internal noise, overthinking, indecision, self-judgment. These slow leaks become floods if left unchecked. You must learn to notice when your energy shifts. That subtle fatigue after certain decisions. That weight in your chest after a vague commitment. That dull ache of regret after spending hours on the unimportant. These signals are your compass. Pay attention to them. They're telling you something critical. Alignment is slipping. When you are in alignment, when your actions match your values, when your goals match your capacity, when your focus matches your intent, you generate energy. You feel lifted, expanded, activated. When you're out of alignment, the opposite happens. You feel tension, resistance, fatigue. And this is where most people go wrong. They try to solve an energy problem with time solutions. They work longer, push harder, wake up earlier, but the problem isn't the hours, it's the misalignment within them. So realign. Ask yourself daily, what activities give me energy? What consistently drains me? What conversations or commitments feel heavy before they even begin? These aren't soft questions. These are the diagnostics of a high-functioning life. Ignore them, and you operate in the dark. Answer them honestly, and you build the blueprint for sustained performance. There's another lie worth dismantling. That willpower is infinite. It's not. Every decision you make pulls from the same battery. Every distraction, every detour, every interruption chips away at your ability to choose wisely. That's why the most effective people simplify. They build routines that reduce friction. They batch decisions. They design their lives to conserve willpower, so it's available when it matters most. And it will matter most when the work becomes heavy, when the temptation to procrastinate rises, when others' chaos threatens to invade your calm. That's when your preparation shows. Energy is not magic. It is not mystical. It is the compound result of choices, patterns, and environments, stacked deliberately, refined continually. You don't stumble into high energy. You architect it. You eliminate what dulls you. You double down on what ignites you. You guard your mental landscape like a fortress, allowing in only what serves your purpose. Because in the end, mastery isn't about managing time. It's about commanding the force you bring into it. Hours are neutral. Energy is power, and the one who controls their energy, not just how much they have but how they use it, controls their results. Chapter 5. Focus is a weapon. Focus is not a trait. It is a weapon. And like any weapon, it must be sharpened, protected, and aimed with intention. In a world engineered for distraction, your ability to focus is your greatest advantage. It's what separates the creators from the consumers, the builders from the busy, the fulfilled from the fractured. But most people treat focus as a luxury, something they'll get to once everything else is done. That's backward. Focus is the prerequisite. Without it, every task is diluted, every decision scattered, every outcome compromised. The modern world is designed to rob you of your attention. Every app, platform, and notification is engineered with one goal: to hijack your mind. Not for minutes, for hours. And the longer you let your attention be fragmented, the more your creative power decays. Focus isn't just about eliminating distraction, it's about cultivating depth. It's choosing to go narrow, not wide. It's saying, I will do less better. I will give my full self to this one task, this one moment, this one move. That's not common. That's rare. And rarity is power. To reclaim focus, you must build a fortress around it. You must decide in advance what deserves your undivided attention and build rituals that protect that decision. Start small. Create blocks of uninterrupted time. No phone, no email, no split screens. Just one task, one purpose, one direction. You will feel resistance. Your brain will crave novelty. That's normal. It's the byproduct of a mind overstimulated by noise. But if you stay with the discomfort, something shifts. You enter the zone. Time bends. Work becomes immersive. Thought becomes fluid. That state isn't random. It's earned. It's trained. The more you practice deep focus, the more your mind adapts. The distractions that once ruled you begin to lose their grip. Your tolerance for shallowness decreases. Your standard for depth rises. And with it, your results begin to separate. You no longer need more time. You're doing more with less. You're not reacting. You're designing. And design is where power lives. Because when you can control your attention, you can control your life. Not in theory, in practice. Your projects get completed. Your ideas mature. Your confidence grows. And your time starts to reflect your true potential. Focus, then, is not optional. It is essential, and the person who learns to wield it with discipline becomes unignorable. To sharpen your focus, you must first understand what breaks it. It's not always the obvious culprits: phones, emails, noisy environments. Often, it's subtler forces, internal clutter, unresolved decisions, vague priorities. You sit down to work, but your mind is still holding a dozen open loops. You try to concentrate, but the background noise isn't external. It's your own unmade choices echoing back at you. This is why clarity must precede focus. You can't focus on what you haven't defined. If your goals are blurry, your efforts will be scattered. If your priorities are vague, your actions will feel hollow. Focus thrives in the presence of purpose. It sharpens when you know exactly what you're aiming for and why it matters. So clarify. Before you begin anything, ask, what outcome am I aiming for? Why does it matter right now? What's the very next action to move it forward? When your brain has direction, it stops drifting. When it understands purpose, it aligns naturally. Still, clarity alone isn't enough. You must create conditions for focus. Focus does not survive in chaos. It requires intention. Structure your day to respect your attention. Create a start ritual. A consistent trigger that signals to your brain, it's time to go deep. It could be a specific place, a piece of music, a glass of water placed beside your keyboard. The content doesn't matter. The consistency does. And just as important as the beginning is the barrier to interruption. Treat your focus time like sacred ground. Put your phone in another room. Turn off notifications. Inform others, if needed, that you are unreachable. Let the world know, this is the hour I protect. Yes, people may resist. The world will try to pull you back into its urgency. But you must remember, urgency is rarely aligned with importance. The people who demand your attention are often not the people who depend on your best work. And your best work can only emerge from uninterrupted depth. This is where mastery lives. Not in the sprint between distractions, but in the long, undisturbed trenches of sustained thought. This is where ideas are refined, strategies are born, problems are truly solved. Focus turns time into a multiplier. 5 deeply focused minutes can produce more insight than an hour of multitasking. 1 uninterrupted session can move a project forward more than a full day of scattered effort. But only if you choose it, and choosing it means rejecting the world's default mode reaction. You are not here to react. You are here to create. You are not a ping-pong ball bouncing between demands. You are a strategist, directing energy toward meaningful ends. Reclaim your focus. Guard it like a secret. Train it like a muscle. Return to it like a ritual. Because in a distracted world, the ability to focus is a superpower. Focus demands sacrifice. You cannot say yes to everything and expect to do anything exceptionally well. Each time you commit to deep work, you are choosing solitude over stimulation, silence over noise, one path over 1,000, and that's uncomfortable. Because the world is built to reward the visible, the fast, the responsive. But real progress is often quiet, invisible, internal. The hours spent thinking through a hard idea, the courage it takes to stay with a problem longer than most would tolerate, the discipline to resist dopamine in favor of depth. This is the terrain of the focused. It's not glamorous, it's not social media friendly, but it is where breakthroughs are born. The undistracted mind becomes a forge. Inside it, ideas are tempered by fire, shaped by time, and sharpened by intent. But only if you stay with them long enough. Most people don't. They bounce, they shift, they surrender to the next notification, the next update, the next shallow reward. And every time they do, their focus muscle weakens. You must train against that. You must build the stamina to sit in boredom without fleeing, to resist the cheap reward in favor of meaningful progress, to delay gratification so your mind has the space to truly think. That's what makes focus rare, not because it's hard to understand, but because it's hard to sustain. So build habits around it. Not once, but daily. Commit to blocks of undivided attention. Even 30 minutes, fully protected, is enough to change your trajectory if done consistently. And treat distractions like intruders. Don't negotiate with them. Don't entertain them. Design your space, your tools, your rituals to eliminate temptation before it arises. It's not enough to have good intentions. Your environment must align with your goals. That means using tools that block distractions. That means scheduling your focus time when you're least likely to be interrupted. That means teaching others to respect your boundaries, not with explanation, but with consistency. You don't have to defend your focus. You just have to demonstrate it. Eventually, people adapt. And more importantly, so do you. You begin to feel the cost of distraction in your bones. You notice how shallow work leaves you unsatisfied, how your best thinking only comes after the silence stretches long enough to become uncomfortable. That's when the gold emerges. Not in the rush, in the stillness, after the rush. So protect your focus like you would protect fire in a storm. Shield it, feed it, and never let it die. Because once you lose it, you become just another responder, another overwhelmed participant in a culture of noise. But when you keep it, you become the one who moves the needle, quietly, deliberately, unstoppably. Chapter 6. Systems over goals. Goals are seductive. They promise clarity, direction, achievement. They sit on vision boards, and at the end of checklists, glowing like trophies waiting to be claimed. But goals are not what build high-performance lives. Systems are. A goal is an outcome. A system is the process that gets you there. Anyone can set a goal. Lose 10 pounds, write a book, double revenue. These are declarations, not strategies. They're targets, but they don't tell you how to hit them. And more importantly, they don't change who you are. Systems do. If your goal is to run a marathon, but you don't build a daily system of movement, training and recovery, the goal remains fantasy. But if your system is to run every morning, eat intentionally, sleep deeply, then whether or not the marathon happens, you've already transformed. This is the power of systems. They shift your identity. You stop being someone who wants something. You become someone who does something. The master of time does not live in constant pursuit of distant outcomes. They build systems that produce results automatically. They design days that compound. They build feedback loops that refine their habits, not just repeat them. They understand that progress is not a matter of motivation, it's a matter of mechanics. Here's the paradox. Systems often feel unremarkable. They are not dramatic. They're not thrilling. They rarely make headlines. but they win, quietly, relentlessly, because systems remove friction, they reduce the need for willpower, they turn good behavior into default behavior, and over time they do what goals cannot. They sustain. If you rely on goals alone, your life becomes a cycle of highs and crashes. You chase a peak, reach it, or don't, and then drift. That's why so many achievers feel lost once they've made it. The goal was the map. Without it, they have no system, no structure, no anchor. But when you operate from systems, success becomes inevitable, not because you're chasing it, but because you're living in alignment with the habits that create it. So stop asking, what do I want to achieve? Start asking, what kind of system would make that inevitable? Then design it. Make it simple. Make it repeatable. Make it frictionless. Make it part of who you are. Because once the system is in place, progress stops being fragile. It becomes automatic. And that's when your time begins to work for you, not because you're striving harder, but because you're building smarter. The beauty of systems lies in their quiet consistency. They don't beg for attention. They don't need applause. They simply execute day after day, while others stall, reset, and chase motivation like a drug. Goals are fixed in the future. Systems exist in the now. And that's where real change happens. Consider this: a writer with a goal to finish a novel might obsess over word count, deadlines, and final chapters. But a writer with a system to write 500 focused words every morning, they'll finish the book, and the next one, without the chaos. Because the process becomes the identity. Systems create rhythm. Rhythm creates reliability. And reliability compounds. That's the secret behind mastery. It isn't grand, it's methodical. Yet many avoid systems because they crave variety. They confuse consistency with boredom. But systems aren't about monotony. They're about structure. A well-designed system doesn't kill creativity. It protects it. By handling the predictable, it frees your mind for the unpredictable. It gives your energy a home, your actions a pattern, your progress a backbone. Think of it like architecture. Your system is the foundation. Your goals are the decorations. Without a strong foundation, the entire structure wobbles with the slightest stress. But with a solid system in place, you can build higher, push further, withstand storms. So what makes a system strong? Simplicity, predictability, adaptability. A good system doesn't depend on your best day. It works on your average day. It doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be consistent. That means designing routines around your energy, not around trends. It means batching similar tasks to avoid context switching. It means removing decisions so action becomes automatic. It means tracking only what matters and letting go of metrics that look good but mean nothing. Systems aren't sexy, but neither is stagnation. They're not inspiring in the moment, but they're transformational in the long run. And the truth is, if you don't build a system, you will default into someone else's. You'll be pulled into reactive work, urgent demands, and endless busy work, not because you're weak, but because you're unstructured. Structure sets you free. It gives you a home for your ambition, a channel for your focus, a map for your time. So take your biggest goal. Now ask, what would a system look like that made achieving this almost automatic? Then build that system. Test it, refine it, and most importantly, commit to it. Because once you do, goals stop being hopes. They start becoming byproducts. Systems are honest. They don't care how badly you want something. They don't respond to declarations or resolutions. They reflect what you actually do, consistently, quietly, repeatedly. That's their power and their unforgiving truth. If you build a system rooted in avoidance, distraction, or overwhelm, it will produce exactly that. But if you build a system rooted in clarity, alignment, and momentum, it will carry you farther than discipline alone ever could. Because systems don't rely on how you feel. They protect you from your moods, they save you from your impulses, they carry you forward when your energy dips and your enthusiasm wavers. They are the scaffolding that keeps your structure standing even when the storm hits. But most people never commit to systems. They chase highs. They rely on bursts of motivation and wonder why they keep returning to the same starting line. They forget that excellence isn't a decision, it's a process. Here's the irony: systems make life easier, but only after you commit to the hard part, designing and sticking to them long enough for momentum to kick in. That's the turning point. At first, the system feels like friction, new habits, new schedules, a break from your comfortable chaos. But then something shifts. What once felt like effort becomes default. What once required reminders becomes ritual. What once drained you begins to energize you. And now you're not forcing progress. You're becoming the kind of person who produces it without even trying. This shift from forcing to flowing is where transformation becomes permanent. You stop needing constant inspiration. You stop starting over. You stop living in the false loop of trying harder, burning out, and trying again. Because the system carries you, and if that system is aligned with your values, with your energy, with your vision, then every day becomes progress, even the slow ones. So build a system you can live inside, one that reflects the future you're creating, not the habits of your past, one that makes the right choice easier, not harder. Let that system speak louder than your motivation. Let it carry you through the dips. Let it shape your identity until the outcome is no longer a matter of luck or will, but inevitability. Because when your life runs on powerful systems, success is not a question of if, it's a question of when. Chapter 7. The Discipline of Saying No. Saying no is a skill, and like any skill, it must be practiced, sharpened, and defended. Most people think they struggle with time, but what they truly struggle with is boundaries. The inability to say no is the silent thief of time, energy, and clarity. It disguises itself as politeness, as ambition, as opportunity. But underneath, it is erosion. Every yes is a contract, a commitment of your future energy. And if you don't guard that commitment with intention, you'll find yourself overbooked, overwhelmed, and underwhelmed by your own results. Saying no isn't rejection, it's redirection. It's the act of protecting your path. It's a declaration: I know what I'm building, and I won't let this detour dilute it. But here's the truth. Saying no will make you uncomfortable. It will challenge your identity, especially if you've been the person who always delivers, always shows up, always says yes. You'll fear letting people down. You'll fear missing out. You'll fear being seen as difficult. Let that discomfort come, then let it pass. Because saying yes to everything is a lie dressed as loyalty. It's not loyalty to others. It's disloyalty to yourself. Clarity demands constraint, and constraint demands refusal. The most effective people aren't the ones who do the most. They're the ones who say no to almost everything, so they can say yes to the right things. They don't apologize for their focus. They don't explain their absence. They don't compromise their vision just to avoid tension. They have built the muscle of selective commitment, and that muscle is their armor. To develop it, you must rewire how you view no, not as confrontation, but as strategy, not as a barrier, but as a filter. Each no refines your life. It removes clutter. It protects momentum. It clears the space for depth. And here's something crucial. You don't owe explanations. A simple, direct no is enough. I'm not available for that. That doesn't align with my priorities right now. I appreciate the offer, but I'll pass. Say it with kindness, but say it with finality. The more you explain, the more room you leave for negotiation. And this isn't a negotiation, it's a boundary. So practice it. Say no in low-stakes situations first. Build the reflex. Make it part of your identity. Because when you become someone who guards their time with intention, people respect it, even if they don't understand it. You don't need everyone to understand. You need to protect what matters most. And that begins with the courage to say no, clearly, confidently, and without guilt. Each time you say no, you sharpen your focus. You reclaim a piece of yourself that would have been scattered, diluted, or misused. You remind your future that it matters more than someone else's momentary convenience. But understand this, saying no isn't just about avoiding tasks. It's about protecting alignment. Alignment with your goals. Alignment with your energy. Alignment with who you're becoming. Every yes carries weight. It shifts your schedule, redirects your attention, consumes your bandwidth. So even when a request seems small, 10 minutes here, a quick favor there, you must pause and evaluate the full cost. Because it's never just 10 minutes. It's the recovery time. The mental context switch. The subtle shift in momentum. It's the way one small yes opens the floodgate to many more. This is why people who seem generous with their time often end up resentful. They gave too freely, without boundaries, without standards. They confused availability with generosity. True generosity begins with discernment. You cannot pour from a scattered mind. You cannot help from an empty schedule. You cannot serve meaningfully if you're saying yes out of obligation rather than clarity. So build your criteria. Know what you're willing to say yes to and why. Define your red lines. Decide in advance what gets an automatic no. Then when the requests come, and they will, you respond from intention, not pressure. And when someone pushes, remember their urgency is not your emergency. Their expectations are not your assignment. Their reaction is not your responsibility. You are not rude for saying no. You are responsible. And responsibility, in its highest form, means stewarding your time like a precious resource, because it is. Consider the greats, not just the productive, but the impactful. They are not constantly reachable. They are not always in motion. They are selective, deliberate, unavailable by default. Why? Because they understand the cost of dilution. They don't spend their energy proving their worth. They spend it preserving their power. You must do the same, and yes, it will require uncomfortable conversations. You will disappoint some people. You will walk away from things that once felt essential. But every time you do, you strengthen your core. You teach others how to treat your time. More importantly, you teach yourself what truly deserves it. Because at the end of the day, your calendar is your character in motion. And if it's filled with everything, it means you've committed to nothing. Let your no be as strong, as intentional, and as unapologetic as your most important yes. Saying no is a form of self-respect. It's not about arrogance or isolation. It's about knowing your capacity, understanding your mission, and honoring both. The more precise you become with your no, the more powerful your yes becomes. And this is key. You cannot protect your yes until you master your no. Every time you default to yes out of fear, fear of judgment, fear of missing out, fear of tension, you dilute your intention. You scatter your focus. You plant seeds of resentment that bloom quietly over time. But when you say no with integrity, something shifts. Your clarity deepens. Your confidence grows. You move from being a responder to being a designer of your life. That's the transformation. Because at its core, no is not just a word, it's a design tool. It carves space. It sculpts time. It chisels away what doesn't fit, so what remains is only what truly belongs. The person who says no with ease is not cold. They are focused. They understand that time is a non-renewable resource, and every yes must be earned, not demanded. If you want to build anything meaningful, you must build a fortress around your priorities. Your vision cannot survive if it's constantly interrupted by the expectations of others. Your goals will wither if they are buried beneath obligations you didn't choose. Your energy will decay if it's spent servicing tasks that serve no purpose. So here's a challenge. This week, say no to 3 things you would normally say yes to. Not because you're careless, but because you're clear. Watch what happens. You'll feel tension, but also relief. Discomfort, but also space. That space, it's where your most important work lives. That space is not empty. It's full of potential, clarity, and freedom. And over time, that freedom becomes fuel. It empowers you to move faster, think deeper, execute cleaner. You stop reacting to the world and start building the one you want to live in. This is what mastery looks like in real life. Not just optimizing your day, but defending it. So the next time someone asks for your time, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, does this honor the life I'm building? If not, you already know the answer. And if it feels hard to say it anyway, because your time is not a negotiation. It is your legacy in motion. Chapter 8. Designing your ideal day. Most people drift through their day, reacting to whatever shows up. Emails arrive, they respond. Meetings appear, they attend. Notifications ping, they check. Time becomes something that happens to them, rather than something they control. But the master of time does not drift. They design. Your ideal day is not a fantasy. It's a blueprint, and building it starts with one critical mindset shift. You are the architect of your time. That means every hour is a choice. Every commitment is a declaration. Every repeated action is a vote for the kind of life you're constructing. So the question is simple. If you could live one day on repeat, one day that over time would shape your best self, what would that day look like? Start there. Strip away the distractions. Silence the outside demands. Imagine a day that aligns perfectly with your energy, your values, your mission. Not a perfect day, a designed day. One that blends structure with flexibility, intention with flow, results with renewal. The key isn't to cram in more, it's to align your hours with your purpose. Begin with your energy peaks. When are you most alert? When does your mind feel strongest? That's when your most meaningful work should happen. Your deep focus, your strategic thinking, your creative execution. These hours are sacred. Block them, guard them, schedule around them. Next, identify your troughs. Those hours where energy dips, distractions creep in, attention fractures. Don't fight these moments. Design for them, use them for recovery, admin tasks, movement or reflection. Now create your anchors, start of day and end of day rituals. These bookend your performance. They create rhythm. They mark transitions. They signal to your brain, we are in command. Morning rituals are not about complexity. They're about clarity. A few minutes of planning, silence, movement or learning, whatever grounds you. Evening rituals are about release. Review the day. close the loops, disconnect, make sleep a priority, not an afterthought. Then there's what most forget: transition time, between meetings, between modes, between tasks. Rushing from one thing to another is the fastest way to erode clarity. Design moments to reset, a breath, a short walk, a pause to realign. Because presence doesn't happen automatically. It must be cultivated, reclaimed, reinforced. Your ideal day is not a fantasy, because it's not about control. It's about design with intention. You won't follow it perfectly every day. That's not the point. The point is to build a default you're proud of. A rhythm that lifts you instead of draining you. A structure that holds you, even when motivation fades. This is how the extraordinary is built, not through extraordinary days, but through consistently intentional ones. Designing your ideal day means rejecting the myth of balance and embracing the truth of alignment. Balance implies equal distribution, perfect symmetry between work, rest, relationships, and ambition. But life doesn't work that way. Some days are heavier, some seasons are intense. And trying to make everything equal only creates more pressure. Alignment, however, creates peace. When your actions match your priorities, even a busy day feels fulfilling. When your hours reflect your deepest values, even the hard days make sense. This is what you're designing. Not a life of ease, but a life of intention. So look at your current day with brutal honesty. How much of it reflects who you want to become? How much of it is designed, and how much is inherited? How many of your routines are deliberate, and how many are defaults? Your answers will reveal your future, because the future is hidden inside your present patterns. Changing your life does not require massive disruption. It requires consistent redesign. A few key shifts repeated daily reshape everything. Start small. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You need 1 hour of depth, one boundary protected, one habit reinforced, until it becomes part of your identity. That's how you reclaim the day. By defining the non-negotiables. The 3 or 4 core actions that, if executed daily, would make the day a success regardless of what else happens. Maybe it's 90 minutes of focused work. Maybe it's 30 minutes of physical movement. Maybe it's one deep conversation with someone you care about. Maybe it's a silent review of the day before sleep. The point isn't to fill your schedule. The point is to fill it with meaning. From there you refine. Observe how your energy responds. Where are you most distracted? What pulls you off track? Where does time slip through unnoticed? Use these insights to adjust, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Designing your ideal day is not a one-time act. It's a living system, a constant feedback loop of testing, learning, and improving. Over time, it becomes your rhythm. And rhythm is what makes excellence feel effortless. You won't need to think about what matters. You'll live it. And when distractions knock, you won't panic. You'll return to the structure you've built. A structure not rigid, but resilient. One that bends with life's demands without breaking your momentum. This is how you take command, not by controlling every second, but by shaping the flow of your day until it reflects your highest intent. And once your day reflects your vision, your life begins to follow. Your ideal day is not a rigid formula. It's a living rhythm that evolves with your growth. What works today may not work tomorrow. And that's not failure. It's feedback. As your goals shift, as your energy changes, as your responsibilities expand or contract, your daily structure must adapt. Flexibility within discipline, that's the art. What matters is that you don't leave your day to chance. because the cost of an unintentional day is rarely seen immediately. It's revealed over time, in missed opportunities, fragmented focus, and the slow erosion of purpose. One rushed morning becomes a rushed week. One unguarded afternoon becomes a habit of distraction. Soon, the shape of your life begins to resemble everyone else's demands more than your own design. That's why this chapter matters, because the day is the smallest unit of transformation, and once you learn to shape it, you no longer wait for permission to live intentionally. You begin to shape outcomes, not react to them. Here's what an ideal day doesn't need. It doesn't need to start at 5 a.m. It doesn't need to be packed from edge to edge. It doesn't need to match a guru's prescription. Here's what it does need: a clear beginning, where intention is set, protected blocks of undisturbed focus, time to recover, reflect and reconnect, boundaries that separate what's urgent from what's essential, a clear end where the mind is allowed to rest. These components aren't luxuries, they're foundations. Without them you drift. With them you build, and over time, those seemingly small design choices compound. They give birth to results you couldn't chase into existence. They create the internal structure that makes external impact possible. Most people live as if time is something they manage. But the wise understand, time must be shaped. It is clay in your hands. If you do not shape it, it will harden into something you never intended. Something others molded for you. Something that looks like effort, but feels like emptiness. So shape it, even imperfectly, even clumsily at first. Design the day that makes you proud, not just when you finish it, but while you live it. Because the person who owns their day begins to own their direction, and the one who owns their direction doesn't need to chase time. They make it serve. Chapter 9. Momentum over perfection. Perfection is paralysis. It wears the mask of high standards, but underneath is fear of judgment, of failure, of not being enough. Perfection tells you to wait until everything is ready, everything is clear, everything is guaranteed. And while you wait, your momentum dies. But time doesn't wait. Neither does opportunity. Neither does life. That's why the masters of time choose a different principle: momentum over perfection. They understand that motion creates clarity, not the other way around. That action, not overthinking, is the fastest path to growth. That starting messy beats waiting forever to be ready. Because readiness is a myth. There is no perfect day, no perfect plan, no perfect version of you that will suddenly rise from the fog and perform flawlessly. There is only the work and your willingness to step into it now, imperfectly, uncertainly, courageously. Momentum is built through movement, small steps, quick adjustments, relentless forward motion. That draft you're afraid to write, start it badly. That conversation you've been avoiding, begin it awkwardly. That routine you've failed to perfect, do it anyway, imperfectly and consistently. Because the person who moves, even slowly, is always ahead of the one who waits. And here's the paradox: momentum, once in motion, refines everything. It sharpens your process. It reveals what matters. It exposes what doesn't work, and opens the door to better strategies. But none of that is available from the sidelines. You must enter the arena, make mistakes, course correct, keep going. This mindset separates the professional from the perfectionist. The professional shows up, even when the conditions aren't ideal. The perfectionist polishes plans in private, never risking exposure. One builds results, the other builds regret. So choose progress, choose movement, choose friction over fantasy. Set goals you can reach today, not because they're small, but because they unlock the next move. Momentum compounds. It builds confidence. It silences the inner critic, not by arguing, but by proving through action that you are capable. And once you feel that momentum click in, when the actions stack, the habits solidify, the results appear, you'll realize perfection was never the point. The point was progress, and progress lives in motion. Momentum is more powerful than intensity. A single burst of effort feels good, but fades fast. A streak of daily effort, however small, becomes unstoppable. That's because momentum doesn't care how impressive your actions look. It cares that you showed up. Every single day, perfection waits for the stars to align. Momentum builds in the rain, the chaos, the noise. It embraces the real world, the world with distractions, imperfections, and resistance, and moves anyway. This is the key difference. Perfection delays. Momentum decides. One hesitates. The other initiates. And the more you move, the more you learn about yourself, about your work, about what matters, and what's just decoration. The person who prioritizes momentum doesn't fear iteration. They understand that the first version will be wrong. That version too will still be incomplete. That excellence is born from cycles, not from standstills. They fail forward. They adapt quickly. They know that speed does not mean recklessness. It means readiness to evolve. Here's what momentum looks like in real life. Hitting publish even when the work feels unfinished. Showing up to train, even when your body resists. Writing the first sentence, even when you don't know the ending. Taking the meeting, making the ask, submitting the pitch, even when the fear says wait. Because waiting feeds doubt. Action starves it. And the irony, as momentum builds, your work does get better, sharper, more aligned, more impactful. But not because you waited for perfection, because you earned your progress through motion. This is what separates the amateur from the pro. The amateur wants it to feel right before starting. The pro knows it won't feel right, but starts anyway. The amateur is obsessed with outcome. The pro focuses on reps. The amateur wants certainty. The pro moves with courage despite uncertainty. If you want to master your time, stop trying to master every detail before you move. Build the habit of action, the discipline of beginning. Create systems that favor momentum, short deadlines, frequent reviews, consistent delivery. Reduce friction, eliminate excuses, reward execution, and don't confuse momentum with speed. You don't have to move fast, you just have to move forward. Even the smallest step counts, because each step builds trust, not with others, with yourself. And that self-trust is the engine of long-term performance. It tells you, I may not know exactly where this leads, but I trust myself to figure it out along the way. That's momentum. That's power. Momentum is your insurance against inertia, because the moment you stop moving, resistance grows roots. One skipped task becomes two. One delayed start becomes a habit of hesitation. And before long, you're back at zero, not because you failed, but because you paused too long. That's the real danger. Not failure, but stagnation. Perfection will always tempt you to stop, to wait, to tweak just a bit more. Momentum pulls you forward. It tells you that movement is mastery, even when it's messy, even when it's flawed, even when it feels small. You don't need huge wins to keep going. You need forward motion. One decision, one action, one completed loop. That's the mindset of a builder, a finisher, a strategist of their own time. You begin to design your days around traction, not aesthetics, around what builds momentum, not what looks good on paper. You focus on stacking actions that move the needle, instead of polishing plans that never launch. And here's where the shift becomes visible. People will notice, not because you're louder, but because you're consistent. Not because you're perfect, but because you're producing. While others are trapped in cycles of overthinking, you're iterating. While others are fine-tuning their brand, you're solving real problems. While others are waiting for alignment, you're creating results that draw alignment to you. Momentum becomes your magnet. It draws clarity. It attracts collaboration. It builds confidence, not overnight, but undeniably. And it's addictive. The more you act, the easier it becomes to act again. The more you move, the less you fear friction. You begin to crave motion, not for the sake of busyness, but for the satisfaction of direction. But here's the part most overlook. Momentum doesn't require hustle. It requires consistency with purpose. 5 focused minutes matter more than an hour of scattered effort. 1 real move matters more than 10 theoretical ones. Don't wait for the perfect window. Don't wait for motivation to hit. Don't wait for life to be calm. Start where you are, with what you have, and take the next useful step. Useful, not glamorous. Actionable, not impressive. Sustainable, not explosive. That's how momentum compounds, quietly, consistently, with the humility to begin before you feel ready, and the grit to keep going after others would have stopped. In the end, the people who build extraordinary things are rarely the most polished. They're the ones who learn to move anyway. Chapter 10. Owning the clock. You do not find time. You take it. This is the final truth, the thread that ties every principle together. Time is not something you manage like a spreadsheet. It is not a passive river you drift along. It is territory, and it must be claimed. Owning the clock means stepping into full responsibility for how your minutes are spent, not just in theory, but in practice. It means no more stories about not enough hours. No more blaming urgency, circumstances, or overwhelm. Because when you own the clock, you stop living at the mercy of it. Time becomes your servant, not your master. This shift doesn't happen with better planning alone. It happens with identity. You become someone who decides, who allocates, who defends, who chooses how and where energy is spent. Owning the clock begins with one powerful question: what will I no longer allow time to be stolen by? Because time theft is everywhere. It's in the meeting that should have been an email. It's in the endless scroll that numbs instead of refuels. It's in the social expectation that your availability equals your value. Owning your time requires ruthless honesty. Where are you leaking hours? Where are you investing in things that don't pay returns? Where are you filling the calendar, but emptying your purpose? This isn't about being busy. It's about being deliberate. Owning the clock means recognizing that time isn't measured in hours. It's measured in results, energy, and alignment. You could spend 12 hours flailing or 2 hours building. The clock records the same passage, but your life, it remembers the difference. So build systems that reflect your power, not your pressure. Cut obligations that don't move your mission. Create default routines that protect your prime hours. And perhaps most critically, stop waiting for the right time to begin. The right time is a myth. You own the clock when you realize this moment, right now, is the only time you control. And in this moment, you can choose to act or delay, to lead or drift, to execute or excuse. The clock ticks either way, but once you own it, every tick becomes intentional. Owning the clock is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters on your terms. It's about designing your life with the awareness that every second has weight, Every minute you give is a transaction. And just like money, time spent thoughtlessly will vanish without return. You must become a conscious spender of your hours. You must ask again and again, does this move me forward or just keep me busy? When you own the clock, you no longer wait for permission to protect your time. You don't ask if it's okay to say no. You don't explain why you need space to think, focus, or rest. You decide. You protect. You act. This discipline doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It's not about controlling every block of your calendar. It's about knowing what each block is for. It's about moving through your day with clarity, not rushing, not reacting, but leading, with confidence, with authority, with full awareness of where your time is going and why. And when things go off course, as they always will, you don't spiral. You realign. You course correct. Because you've trained yourself to notice the drift and return to intention. Owning your time also means owning your transitions. Most time is lost, not in the doing, but in the switching, the hesitation between tasks, the anxiety before decisions, the mental lag between one mode of thinking and the next. This is where the best performers separate themselves. They move with rhythm. They build rituals between work and rest, creation and recovery, interaction and solitude. They create mental compartments, structures that hold their focus in place and release it cleanly when the task is complete. This isn't rigidity. It's clarity in motion. And within that clarity is power, the kind that doesn't get flustered by the noise of the world. The kind that doesn't overcommit, overreact, or overcompensate. Because the person who owns the clock knows this, being calm is a competitive advantage. While others sprint in circles, you move with precision. While others fill their time, you carve yours with purpose. Owning your time is not a luxury, it is your responsibility. It is how you turn your life from reaction to creation, from noise to strategy, from regret to rhythm. And when you begin to live this way, when your minutes match your values, your schedule reflects your priorities, and your time becomes an expression of your highest self, you're not just managing time anymore, you're mastering it. To truly own the clock, you must rise above the illusion that more time equals more freedom. Freedom isn't found in endless hours, it's found in how you use them. The people who live with the most clarity aren't those with wide-open schedules. They're the ones who've decided what matters and have built their time around it with precision. Because freedom without structure becomes chaos. Structure without purpose becomes prison. But structure guided by clarity, that becomes liberation. When you own the clock, every hour serves you, not because you've filled it, but because you've designed it. You begin to move through your day like a sculptor moves through stone, not trying to add more, but trying to reveal the essential. You chip away distractions. You strip back obligations. You remove anything that doesn't align. This is how leaders operate. They don't run faster, they move cleaner. They don't do more, they do the right things. They aren't addicted to action, they're committed to effectiveness. And they measure time not in what was done, but in what was moved forward. So ask yourself, what would it look like if I stopped borrowing time from my future? Every delayed decision, every unnecessary commitment, every hour spent avoiding the work that matters, it all adds interest. Eventually, that interest comes due, in stress, in regret, in a life that looks busy but feels hollow. You don't need more hours, you need more honesty. About where your time goes, about who and what receives it, about the real cost of delay, distraction and dilution. Because once you see time clearly, you can't unsee it. You begin to notice the friction points, the leaks, the places where you've been generous with something that was never meant to be shared carelessly. And then something shifts. You become fierce about your focus. You become unapologetic about your boundaries. You become deliberate with your energy, not because you're rigid, but because you're awake. This is what mastery looks like in time. Not perfection, not control, but full possession. You are no longer renting your days. You are owning them. And in doing so, you reclaim the only thing you ever truly had, the power to choose. Where your time goes, your life follows. So choose with intention, choose with courage, and make every tick of the clock a vote for the life you've decided to lead. Conclusion. Mastery begins now. Time does not belong to the busy. It belongs to the deliberate. Throughout this journey, you've uncovered not just strategies but truths. Truths that cut through the noise of productivity hacks and trend-driven techniques. You've seen that managing time isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's not about finding balance. It's about building alignment. You now know the power of awareness, of watching your time with sharp, honest eyes. You've seen how busy is not a badge, but a red flag. You've learned to eliminate, to say no with conviction, to design your day instead of reacting to it. You understand that energy is more valuable than hours, that systems beat goals,